I am Derek Weitzel. I'm a grad student at the University of Nebraska, and I'm going to be talking about Bosco today. I'm going to have a short presentation. I'm not the biggest fan of big, long presentations. I'm hoping most of this will be demoing um, Bosco actually working. It's a live demo, so fingers crossed. And then demoing the early R integration work that we've been doing. Um, and so I want to quickly go through the goals of Bosco. We wanted to make it easy for users to do computational research. And it should be easy to use, install, maintain, and most importantly, it should be simple for the user. And so we did this by using what's already at the clusters. We use their identity management, their access methods. We present a consistent interface to the users. And if demand increases, if users learn that they like high throughput computing, they can expand organically from cluster to cluster without any changes. So I like to go through a user scenario of what a user actually, what their mentality is. So they may have a computer, access to one cluster, and then they have this processing for the research that they want to do. So they want to have simple job submission management, and they want their research to be done now so that they can publish. And so what Bosco does is it submits, you have your Bosco submit host, which in my case is my laptop always, but it could be a desktop somewhere at work or wherever. When you submit a job, it uses SSH into the login node, which almost all clusters have SSH as their access method. It starts up something called the blob, which in turn submits a job to the PBS cluster, or Slurm, or SGE, and that job is the job you submitted to Bosco. So in the end, it uses HT Condor to provide a consistent interface. It uses SSH to connect to the clusters. It uses something from Europe called Blob to interface with the cluster scheduler, and it also does auto detection of the remote cluster's operating system in order to install the correct version of Bosco. And so you don't have to worry about the remote cluster being Red Hat 5, Red Hat 6, Debian, whatever. Bosco will detect it and install correctly. And there are some pretty significant benefits to using Bosco. One of the first ones is a lot of HPC clusters throttle how many jobs you can submit to the cluster. So, for example, at NERSC, you can only have 10 jobs in queue at any time. So how do you manage, how do you submit, you have 10,000 jobs that you want to get done, how do you submit them to NERSC? And this is what Bosco does. It will only send 10 jobs in the queue at NERSC at a time. And these limits are automatically detected on the cluster. Job data is transferred back after the job has completed back to where you submitted it. So you don't have to go out to the nurse cluster, for example, and SCP all the files back, or you don't have to look through the files there. They can all be transported back to your laptop so that you can open it in Excel or however you do post-processing. And again, you don't care about the remote operating system. That's automatically done by Bosco. And I talked a little bit about the job throttling. Again, it's automatic on the clusters. It will detect what number of jobs Bosco can submit to it, and it doesn't matter how many jobs you submit to Bosco. Bosco will automatically limit itself. And Bosco is also mobile. So if you have your submit host as your laptop, and you submit 1,000 jobs, and then you close it and you go home for the day. And then you open it back up in the evening, maybe after dinner, and you want to see how your jobs are doing. Bosco will automatically reconnect, check the status of your jobs, and you can keep up. And if any jobs are completed, it'll transfer the data back to your laptop. And also, I don't know about you, but I work a lot on airplanes. And so sometimes I get a crazy idea and I want to submit, a couple hundred jobs, but obviously I don't have Wi-Fi if I'm on a United flight, and I want to submit just my crazy idea. So I can submit it to Bosco. Bosco will detect that I'm offline. It won't do anything. And then once I open my laptop back, once I get home or to the conference, Bosco will automatically submit the jobs to the remote clusters, just as if I had just submitted them. And so this automatic resuming of operation after the network is reconnected. And again, the job data is transferred to and from your laptop. And so you don't have to SCP to other locations. You don't have to, uh, uh, send data using however method you want to use. Uh, it's all central to your laptop. So if you create data with some pre-processing or through Excel or however, you can send it directly from your laptop, directly from the directories that you know and love on your own home directory. And again, multi-operating system support is automatically detected. There are a few requirements. I think they're very minimal. On the clusters, you have to be running some sort of scheduler. PBS, LSF, HT Condor, SGE, or Slurm. You have to have a shared home file system, which I think almost all clusters have. But there are no requirements on the submit host. As I said, uh, if you don't have internet connection, then it'll try to submit later. But there are really no other requirements on the submit host itself. And Bosco has been tested for compatibility with things such as Pegasus and Dagman. So anything that you normally see run on HT Condor can also run on Bosco. And it's important to point out some of these Joe the biologist benefits. Is you get the simple access to clusters on the campus, and you don't have to worry about the configuration of the cluster. Whether they have a maximum number of jobs they can have in queue, whether their operating system is different from the submit host that you're submitting on, it doesn't matter. And so you're able to just run it very transparently. And so a little bit about the future. We know that scientists don't want to see HT Condor. That's why every time you see HT Condor, the scientists have written wrappers upon wrappers around HT Condor in order to make their life easier. And they want to see, their MATLAB or their R or their Galaxy. And so that's exactly what Bosco is doing. We're integrating directly with these software projects. And we're starting with R, and I want to show you a demo of that at the end of today. Which hopefully, if the install goes well, it will be rather soon. So first thing I want to do is I want to go to the Bosco website, which I just so happen to have open here. It's bosco.opensciencegrid.org. And I'm going to download it. I'm going to download the beta, which will probably be released later today. And of course, we want to know a little bit about you. And you can follow along if you would like. All of these instructions are also in the quick start instructions, which are at the very top. I just want to save it, download it, and save it. And then I will go to the install instructions, although I know these quite well. Okay, so the first step, I've already downloaded the installer, so I just need to extract it. And then run the Bosco installer. And it automatically detects I'm running a Mac, This is obviously all on my laptop. So the next step is I need to actually source, and it tells you at the very end, we created the script. It must be run every time you log in. And so we just run this real quick. And now Bosco commands are in my environment. So I need to, the first step I want to do is I want to start Bosco. And then I want to add a cluster. Now, in my slides, I am going to use a cluster here on the UNL campus called Firefly. And I have to say my username, just like I was logging into it directly. And I have to tell it it's a PBS cluster. And this takes a few seconds to detect the PBS configuration, download the correct version of Bosco for Firefly. Now, Firefly is a Red Hat 5 cluster. I'm obviously running on my Mac, and so it needed to download a different version. It may take a few seconds. Okay. Installation complete. It has been added to Bosco, and now I can submit jobs with these two lines to Firefly. Now, normally the first step you want to do is you just want to do a test against it, just to make sure everything is running. It does run some minimal tests, but a complete test is always nice. And so this will just take a few seconds, and it'll submit to Firefly. Now I do want to point out that so how many command line options has it taken for me to install it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've added the cluster. So 5 command line options. Now this will change in the future. We are always trying to make this easier. And so, especially on the Mac platform, this may change rather soon. But more on that later. Okay, so this is waiting for the job. Maybe Firefly's busy. Who knows? So I'm just going to let it sit there, and I'm going to move on to R. Now, we have a very early working of this R integration, but the documents are going to change, and so feel free to install it now, but it may not work. It may not function as advertised. So just prepare yourself. This is all very alpha, but I did want to show what it looks like and what it's going to look like. And so I have some lines here because I'm fairly new to R myself. And I'm going to start up my favorite IDE for R, which is RStudio. And so the first thing you need to do is you need to load the gridr package, which is right here, which RStudio does a great job of just displaying all the packages available. So all I have to do is just click this checkbox and gridr is loaded. And then I need to initialize it. And I need to say the service I'm using in gridr is bosco.direct. And I have to give it a temporary directory. Local temp dir equals. And that just tells gridr that I want to use the Bosco direct method. And then I'm going to do a, I need to create a function. And I'm going to use a very simple function. Literally all this does is if I call this function with any number, it'll just double it. It's very simple. Obviously, they can be more complex than that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send this function to be executed out on the grid. And so all I have to do is do apply, and I have to say what variable the result will be written to. I say what function to use and the parameter. And so I'm going to use 13. Nice prime number. And it submits. Now what you'll notice is suddenly I have this new value up here, this x. And it's an unknown value right now, so it's been initialized, but nothing's been written to it. Obviously, the job was just submitted now, so it may take a few minutes to actually come back. And what you can do is you can, all of this is in R. I can ask it, what are the currently running jobs? And it'll tell me, I have one job currently running. It's going to write into the variable x, and then this is the unique identifier for the job, which hopefully you never have to worry about if everything's working. And so this is going to take a little bit. But in the meantime, I found a great, more complex function from something Marco did yesterday at UC3, where they do a little bit more complex of a function where they actually do a Monte Carlo pi calculation. So this is a little more complex. It might actually take some computational power in order to do this. But I wanted to show for a more complex function what it looks like. And so in this case, I can just do grid apply. Very similar syntax, or same syntax. Let's see if I can spell this right. And then I want to do a million iterations of it. And all I do is I do that grid apply, and I'll see that there's a new variable up here in my environment. Print jobs. And I'll see that there's 2 jobs currently running. And you should also notice that this is all asynchronous. And so I just sent it out, and once the job's complete, they'll automatically be written. The variables will automatically be updated to the new value in the environment. And so this may take a few minutes. And of course, you can always cheat and actually see what is the status of my jobs. And so they're both idle on Firefly. Most likely Firefly is quite busy right now. And so once these jobs return, it'll put the correct value back into the environment, and you can continue on with your R calculations. Now, I could shut my laptop right now with R still running and go off home and then open it back up, and the results again would be put up into the environment once the jobs have completed. Just the same way that Bosco is able to handle network disconnections.
Derek, I mean, this is really great. I'm wondering, do you have any news, or do you anticipate having any news on the integration with other software such as MATLAB and Galaxy?
Are there any questions? Yes, both my jobs are running. Excellent. So they should be coming back anytime now. So there is a student, and one of the grid jobs just completed. You'll see that grid job finished, result written to variable x. And then if I print out the variable x, it got 26, which is exactly, double 13. And then just now, as I typed x, the other job finished, and it's written to NuPy, and I can also print out NuPy. And well, that's an okay approximation of real pi. So for specifically for MATLAB, there is effort inside of the HT Condor developers to integrate directly with MATLAB. So they literally have a button that says, go run this on HT Condor. Now, MATLAB itself is commercial, so it's not quite like integrating um, with R, since R is open source. But I think HT Condor Group will make significant progress on this and get something working, and then Bosco will take the torch and run from there. And so, but that's specifically for MATLAB. For things like Galaxy is a little bit different. Galaxy runs on a server, and so users don't generally install Galaxy on their own laptop. It's not really useful that way. Um, so we're trying to integrate with some of the more common Joe the Biologist applications. Problem with Joe the Biologist is every Joe uses a different application. And so it's difficult, I think, to find these common applications that a lot of people use, like R. But yes, we are actively investigating what people are using and how we can integrate with them. R is just the beginning. So both of our jobs came back, and you'll see that the values are actually
indeed. And Derek, I was going to ask, do you have in mind a release date for this Bosco R? Is that by May, you said, or something like that? Or not May? There's like a, when is this R conference coming?
So as demos go, I can't imagine this going anymore perfectly. Wish Firefly was a little faster, but then again,
yeah, that's a nice. You got this down to a nice presentation, Derek.
Thank you. Okay, so the official release date for Bosco R is not quite set yet. I anticipate some. So we have a representative going to the R users meeting in Spain in the middle of July, and it will be working by then. But the release date may be before that. But we're looking for like alpha users. We know how this works. We like how this works, but we're wondering, do other people like how this works? Would it be more interesting if you submitted entire R scripts to Bosco, or is it more interesting to submit single functions? Now, of course, these single functions can be very complex. They could call yet other functions. They could source other files and things of that nature. The Bosco R integration will pick that up and correctly compile the functions. We're mostly looking back for feedback on, is this the integration that would be ideal for researchers? And to answer David's comment, yes. So the answer to that question is yes. You're able to recover the job state. Bosco will automatically function after you start back up if a laptop crashes, and so it will transfer the job data back. And then in GridR itself, the plugin that we're using for the Bosco R integration, there is an ability to well, actually, the output is written to a normal R data file. And so all you have to do is import the data file back. Now, I think what you're asking for is like a great way to import the session back from where it came from. And I don't know if GridR provides something that clever. I know there is this great
So Derek, does GridR work with Open Science Grid?
That what it will do is it will check the temporary directory and see if there's any completed jobs and possibly import this stuff back into the environment. And I think that might do what you want, where it'll automatic, as long as your temporary directory is the same on the new R session that you create. I believe it will import the correct variables back. Don't quote me on that. I'll have to look that up. So yes, it will. So GridR works with Bosco direct submission, so not with multi-user.
So what if you don't want to
multi-cluster
pull the
direct
or
submission?
build the entire R down to every worker node? I mean, that seems like it's going to be pretty heavy.
Yes.
Why
So
can't you just get R out of it if you have it installed in CBMFS or Oasis
it
or
will
something?
automatically install R
Can it be integrated
in
like
the
that?
home directory. Now, on most OSG sites, home directories are either really small, non-existent, or something like that. So in that case, it'll fall back to it, whatever directory the job started in, and it will install R there, and then use that R installation to run the R application. So yes, it will work on the Open Science Grid.
Oh, well, 40 megabytes is small, bringing it in without a squid. I mean, that's pretty tiny.
Actually, the CHTC has done a very good job of doing exactly this, which is bringing down R with every installation. It's actually not that big.
You know, how flexible is GridR?
Using Squid.
I mean, how specific is it to R?
Binary is about.
In other words, can we reuse some of the back-end stuff here for other tasks and other programs?
Right. Well, you start talking about these big sites, and it becomes big kind of quick. But with Squid, yes, it is very small.
Okay.
So we're not really worried about that too much, especially on the OSG with their Squid support everywhere.
Okay.
Well, GridR is a plugin for R, so it's very specific to R, I think is the answer to that question. But this is the kind of integration that I think would be useful for things like MATLAB. And although the button on the top of the MATLAB...
This is quite nice. I mean, you know that I know this isn't Joe the biologist, but Joe the physicist would like to have something like an integration with Root, for example.
Questions about
I don't know what that, you know, that's...
Bosco R integration?
That would be kind of interesting.
I apologize, RStudio, how do I get this to be bigger? Oh, that actually works.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, there's obviously not a big impact, or you know, I mean, I mean, it's not a area that you want to probably spend a lot of time in, but it just, you know, for very generic root applications, it seems like it would be kind of an interesting thing to do. Yeah, it's a little bit like proof in a way.
The physicists are a completely different breed, right? I mean, they have every physics experiment has their own way of submitting jobs and acquiring data. And
right.
So,
okay, very good. Any additional questions for Derek? All right, that was nice, short and sweet. So our next webinar event is going to be June 21st, and we'll talk about the campus grid activity at Indiana University. And Rob Quick will talk about some of the work that he's done there. So we will convene again in this monthly forum June 21st.